cemetery, burial ground, gravesite, or graveyard is a place where the remains of dead people are buried or otherwise interred. The word cemetery comes from the Greek word sleeping place. Implies that the land is specifically designed as a burial ground and originally applied to the Roman catacombs. The term graveyard is often used interchangeably with cemetery, but a graveyard primarily refers to a burial ground within a churchyard. From around the 7th century CE in Europe, a burial was under the control of the church and could only take place on consecrated church ground. Practices varied, but in continental Europe, bodies were usually buried in a mass grave until they had decomposed. The bones were then exhumed and stored in ossuaries, either along the arcaded bounding walls of the cemetery or within the church under floor slabs and behind walls. In most cultures, those who were vastly rich, had important professions, were part of nobility, or were of any other high social status, were usually buried in individual crypts, inside or beneath the relevant place of worship, with an indication of their name, date, and death, and other biographical data. In Europe, this was often accompanied by a depiction of their coat of arms. Starting in the early 19th century, the burial of the dead in graveyards began to be discontinued due to rapid population growth in the early stages of the Industrial Revolution. Continued outbreaks of infectious disease near graveyards and increasingly limited space in graveyards for new interments. In many European states, burial in graveyards was eventually outlawed altogether through legislation. Instead of graveyards, completely new places of burial were established away from heavily populated areas and outside of old towns and city centers. This would become known as a cemetery. The urban cemetery is a burial ground located in the interior of a village, town, or city. Early urban cemeteries were churchyards, which filled quickly and exhibited a haphazard placement of burial markers as sextons tried to squeeze new burials into the remaining space. As new burying grounds were established in urban areas to compensate, burial plots were often laid out in a grid to replace the chaotic appearance of the churchyard. Urban cemeteries developed over time into a more landscaped form of a civic development of beliefs and institutions that sought to portray the city as civilized and harmonious. No matter how you feel about cemeteries, graveyards, burial grounds, you may have to put those feelings aside, because for most of you, someday, one of these will be your home.